Okay, in this next section, we're going to be talking about how to validate the raw system. Now, when I reviewed this pyramid, I talked about each of these at a high level. We're going to go deeper now into validating a raw system. Now, the objective of this section is to check that the system is profitable and worth investigating further. Now, why is this so important? If I got this system out of a book written by a famous trading author, why do I need to validate the system as it stands? Can't I just trade with the system because the expert said it was right? Well, let me tell you, I've read hundreds of trading books and I've tested many hundreds of trading systems. And I know some of you out there are in the same boat. And many of them just don't live up to the expectations or the statistics that they're published with. Unfortunately, there's a few flaws or a number of flaws in the system testing methodology that I used in many of these books and many of these articles. And the biggest and most common one is does not include slippage and commissions. If you have a system that does not include slippage and commissions, you have no idea how profitable it is until you test it with slippage and commissions. And a lot of short-term, high-frequency systems just don't stand up if the slippage and commissions get too high. And so when you're getting a trading system out of a book or an article or off a website, you really do need to validate that as it stands, it's profitable enough for you to investigate further. There's a number of other errors or challenges that I've found in very well-known books that cause some problems with the backtesting results that mean they're not as good as they appear in the book. Now, I'm not sledging on any of the authors that are in this picture. I just want to be clear. These are some of my favorite trading books, but these are general concepts that I want you to be aware of. So if you want to buy trading books, buy any of the ones on that picture. They're all great. But there's some other challenges that you'll see in systems that you pick up out of a book or off a website and try and implement. As I said, a lot of the testing doesn't include slippage and commissions, and that's a real problem. Also, a lot of them used to be profitable, but they're not anymore, or they're significantly degraded. And that can be because, well, when the author published it, a lot of people started trading it, and so the edge is disappearing. Or it could be that the author published it because it was already degrading and it was no longer of value to them. I talked in a previous section about the turtle trader system, which made hundreds of millions of dollars for that group of traders. But now you wouldn't trade it in its original form, or at least not on most markets. So the system degraded so much in comparison to what it was that it's no longer nearly as good as it used to be. So system degradation is something really to be aware of. So particularly if you pick up an older book, you really want to make sure that the system is still stable. Another thing that you'll see is that it may be profitable, but the profitability might be eroding. And I'll talk about how to test for stability of profits in a later section. But often, you can pick up a book, test the system, and you'll see, oh, the back test looks good, but in the last couple of years it slows down. And that's a sure sign of, or a warning sign of degradation in the edge of the system. And you want to be aware that that's happening. Other problems are the back test is over optimized. In an effort to provide a good example for the text, there's a risk that the author may have over-optimized or curve-fit the system. Now, you'd like to think that that doesn't happen, but I've tested systems out of books that are definitely curve-fit. And so they're not worth trading, or they're unsafe. And so you need to validate that the system is tested well. And you'll know that if it's curve-fit, because the results in the book are amazing. But when you test it today on new data that's come out since the book was published, the system performance will be terrible in comparison. So you'll know that it's curve fit. there's a lot of published systems where the results are exaggerated, excessively positive results because of survivorship bias. A prime example is, if you look at a system and it says tested on the S&P 500 stocks, that's great, except that the S&P 500 stocks today are different than the S&P 500 stocks 5 or 10 years ago. So if it's tested on an index of stocks like the S&P 500 or the ASX top 50 or whatever it is, you need to make sure that the system, the backtest as published, includes or takes into account survivorship bias. So it's got to include historically accurate index constituents. Because if you backtest on today's S&P 500, those are the big stocks today. And what did they have to do in order to be the big stocks today? They had to grow and they had to stay big, which means the share price probably went through a massive run up and they haven't tanked yet. I mean, stocks fall out of the S&P all the time. I mean, I think last week or the week before, GE came out of a big index. And, when that happens, the decline in the share price is removed from the backtest. And when that happens, your backtest results look way more positive than they should be. So I'll talk about survivorship bias and how to get around it. You either need to use historically accurate index constituents or test on the whole market. And my preference is actually to test on the whole market, because that way you get far more trades in your backtest and you can optimize with a greater level of confidence because you've got way more data points. Sometimes trading systems also cheat. Now, cheating in trading in backtesting is really dangerous, because even a small peek at future data that you wouldn't have access to in real-time trading makes a humongous difference to profitability. If your backtest inadvertently looks at future data and the author missed it or did it intentionally, hopefully that doesn't happen, but I'm sure it probably does, then the backtest results will look exceptionally good. And if you don't pick it up, then you're going to be risking trading a system that just doesn't work. There can also be mistakes in the trading code, and the trading system could be fragile and dangerous to trade. There could be components of the rules in the system that, while in a backtest look good, in real-time trading might just be too dangerous. So these are all reasons why you need to validate the trading system no matter what the source. So will you commit to doing that? Doesn't matter how high profile the author is. Doesn't matter which website or blogger or educator you buy the system from. You need to take personal accountability and run the backtest yourself and validate the system. So how do we validate an existing trading system? Well, I've got a really simple framework here. It's the ABC of valid system results. A is for accurate systems. The backtest has to be accurate. The backtest has to be believable, and the backtest has to be comprehensive. And if you do this right, then the system results that are published are valid. And it's a good starting point for you to then go and work on the system. Now, I'm going to go through the ABC of valid system results in the next session.